The Miami Heat are the best 8th seed in NBA history. Going into the playoffs, the Heat had little to no expectations. They had a really disappointing regular season, they were going into the playoffs as a play-in team and even lost their first play-in game. And even after winning their second play-in game, the reward after that was going to be going up against the number 1 seeded Milwaukee Bucks, who at that point were seen as the favorites to make it out of the Eastern Conference. But even after going through all those shortcomings, the Miami Heat currently find themselves in the Eastern Conference Finals against the Boston Celtics, and not only that, but they were also able to win Game 1, and they currently have the home court advantage at this point. And for all the success they've been able to have during these playoffs, I currently see the Miami Heat as the best number 8 seed in NBA history. But quickly, before we get the video started, for those of you who may not know, I'm Juicy Sports, I make opinionated NBA content, and if you guys enjoy videos similar to this, hit that subscribe button, that like button, and that post notification bell. I also want to quickly mention that I recently started up an MMA channel, and if you guys are interested in that, the link will be in the description. But anyways, let's get into it. When you talk about a traditional number 8 seed, either in the Western or the Eastern Conference, typically what you expect and typically what you see from those kind of teams is they lose to the number 1 seed in either 4 or 5 games. And if they're able to go anything longer than that, it's seen as a success for the 8th seed because it's something to build off of going forward long term. But when you look at this Miami Heat team this season, it's pretty clear that they're not a traditional number 8 seed. Not only were they able to have success in the first round against the number 1 seeded Milwaukee Bucks, they were able to completely reverse the script and beat the Bucks in only 5 games. So that series victory alone put the Heat on a very short list of number 8 seeds that beat the number 1 seed. But after the Heat beat Milwaukee, a lot of people chalked that series up to the fact that Giannis was hurt for a few games, and even though Giannis did play more games than he didn't in that series, people just thought having Giannis out at all really affected the Bucks, and that was the reason why they lost that series. And going forward to the Heat's next series against the New York Knicks, a lot of people, I would say, thought New York was going to win, although people did see it as being a very competitive series. And although that series was a little bit more competitive and ended up going 6 games instead of 5, the Miami Heat once again won that series, and they did it in pretty dominant fashion. Even though it did go 6 games, the games that the Heat were winning, they were winning relatively easily, and even the games they were losing, they were very close games and games that the Heat easily could have won. But once again, after winning that playoff series, people chalked it up to the Knicks not having much help for Jalen Brunson, and going forward after that against a better team in the Boston Celtics, the Heat would struggle significantly. But currently at the time of recording this video, the Miami Heat have won Game 1, and they officially took home court advantage from the Boston Celtics, who going into the series was seen as a very heavy favorite. So at this point, it's pretty obvious that people still don't respect the Miami Heat because they were the 8th seed, and how could an 8th seed compete with these championship caliber teams? At the beginning of basically every series for the Heat, most people expect the opposing team to end up beating Miami, and eventually when Miami ends up winning that series, they chalk it up to a different excuse. In the first round, it's because Giannis was hurt. In the second round, it was because Jalen Brunson didn't get any help. And the third round obviously is still going on. The Boston Celtics still have a really good chance to end up winning that series, but the fact that the Heat even won Game 1 is a huge surprise to a lot of people. So it's pretty clear that the Miami Heat are taking this underdog claim and they're running with it. We see this a lot of times in other sports, but also in the NBA, that a lot of times when certain teams are disrespected, they take that and use it as motivation in order to not only propel themselves, but propel their teams to wins in certain games and also to get series victories as well. And when you look at this year's Miami Heat, it's pretty clear that they're extremely motivated and they're using all this disrespect that people are throwing at them as motivation to get better and better, and at this point, obviously it's been working. But the question at this point is, how are the Miami Heat playing so well? Because in the past, I made videos talking about how I thought the NBA has changed. In the past, I thought you can get away with having 2 stars on your roster and you could win an NBA championship with that. But at this point, I think it's a little bit different. I think not only do you need 2 stars on your roster, but you also need your supplementary guys to step up in big moments and hit big shots to give yourself a chance to win an NBA championship. But when you look at the Miami Heat, of course they have that 1 star in Jimmy Butler, that's pretty clear, and maybe you can make the argument that Bam Adebayo is their second guy, but in my opinion, Bam Bam doesn't necessarily classify as that second star I was referring to. So the question at this point is, how are the Heat still so successful without even qualifying for that criteria? Well, of course there's a bunch of different factors that explain the success for the Heat, but in my opinion the biggest reason for why they're playing so well is there's been so many different guys that have stepped up for them. They had guys like Kevin Love, Kyle Lowry, Max Strus, Cody Zeller even, Gabe Vincent, Duncan Robinson. There's so many different players on this roster that have done a phenomenal job at stepping up and not only creating shots for themselves but also creating shots for others. And when you look at this Heat team and this Heat offense specifically, it seems like every trip going down, no matter who they're playing, how good their opposing team's defense is, it seems like the Heat are always getting wide open 3-point looks. And that's a real testament to not only the Heat's coaching staff but also all these individual players, because they've really bought in and they've also improved their game significantly. And even if in certain games the Heat aren't hitting all that well from that 3-point range, they still are getting wide open 3-point looks and they're not afraid to take as many shots as they possibly could. So eventually those shots are going to start to fall, and just like we saw in that New York Knicks series, even though they weren't all that efficient, they were hitting the big shots in clutch situations. So I think the fact that the Heat are able to have so many different guys on the roster step up for them, that really makes up for the lack of that second star, if you want to call it that. Now also their head coach and Eric Spoelstra also has a lot to do with the great play of all these different guys, but at the end of the day I do think the main reason for why the Heat are playing so well in these playoffs so far is due to the improvement of play from all these different guys. But the question at this point is, where do I see the Miami Heat going from here? Do I think the Heat can make it past the Celtics and make it to the finals and potentially even win an NBA championship, or do I think the Celtics are finally going to be the team that beats the Miami Heat? Well, in my opinion, to be honest, going into this series against the Celtics, I did think it would be very difficult for Miami to win. Once again, I just thought the opposing team had the better talent than Miami, but that was a common trend that happened in basically every single series for the Heat so far. In the first round, I thought it was pretty clear that Milwaukee had the more talent. Even in the second round, I thought the Knicks had the more talent, and of course in the third round, I definitely still think the Celtics have the more talent. But after the Heat were able to win game 1 and take home court, I actually do think the Heat have a much better chance than I originally thought to win this series, and at this point I wouldn't be surprised at all if the Heat were able to beat the Boston Celtics and make it to the NBA Finals. And at that point, I also wouldn't be surprised whatsoever if the Heat are able to win an NBA championship no matter who they go up against. Because if there's one thing that I learned throughout this Miami Heat run, it's to never doubt them. No matter how good the opposing team looks that they're going up against, it always seems like the Heat find a way to win those big games and eventually win that series. So even against the Boston Celtics, although the Celtics are a huge favorite in the series, I do still think the Miami Heat have a great chance to win and make it to the NBA Finals. But I guess only time will tell what does end up happening as time progresses. But anyways, let me know what you guys think in the comments. Do you think the Miami Heat are the best number 8 seed in NBA history, or do you not think so? But anyways, I hope you guys enjoyed the video, and if you did enjoy, check one of these two videos popping up now, and until the next time, peace out guys.